You can, oh, if you are interested in Python and AI, feel free to follow me on GitHub. I sometimes share the projects that I'm working on, and most of the work that I do is in public. So almost all of the work that I am doing at Microsoft, you will be able to see it on GitHub and can kind of follow the work that I'm doing if you'd like. So GitHub is there, Twitter as well. I'm quite active there, and on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me as well. Okay. So, we all know that AI is a really big deal, but just how big of a deal is it? Well, according to one person, Andrew Ng, who is very popular, he is the co-founder of Coursera, and right now he works at Stanford University as the head of AI. And he has been quoted in the past as saying that AI is bigger than electricity. So, I mean, obviously, electricity is a big deal. I would not be talking to you this morning if it was not for electricity. So, electricity is a serious thing. And for Andrew, who is a very smart guy, to be saying it is bigger than electricity means that AI is definitely something big. But some people actually feel like that's thinking too small. Some people think he's not thinking big enough. And someone called Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of a small company called Google, he has been quoted as well in the past as saying, actually, no, AI is bigger than fire and electricity. So not just electricity, throw in fire there as well. And obviously, fire is important to society, to our evolution as a human species. So this clearly means that AI is a big deal. But some people think even Sunda is thinking too small. And there's a software engineer in the US who has created the Church of AI, and he feels that AI is God. And so that is probably taking things a bit too far. I just want to say, for context, in another talk I gave, people were screenshotting and saying, I'm the one that said AI is God. It's not, by the way. I don't think that. But yeah, it just goes to show how big of a deal that people around the world feel that AI is and the effects that AI is having. So I do think there are more practical ways that we can measure just how impactful AI has been on the world around us. And one of the ways that we can see that is through the growth and the popularity of ChatGPT. What we saw 2 years ago, this is about 2 years ago in 2022, when ChatGPT was actually released, it actually became the fastest growing app of all time. And I think in just 2 months, they had 100 million users. And so this is one of the fastest growing apps in history. I think it just recently got overtaken by Threads, which, there's that's a whole different conversation in terms of why Threads maybe got more popular. But from scratch, clearly this is a popular app. Actually, the statistics show that as of September, ChatGPT has 200 million active weekly users. So it's not just something, I think this goes to show us that AI isn't just something that people in a boardroom somewhere are talking about, but this is something that people in their day-to-day lives are using actively. So it's really, really useful, and also obviously very exciting and impactful as well. So to me, it's really interesting that even though AI has such a big impact and is so useful to people, for many of us, when ChatGPT was released 2 years ago, this was the first time we had ever heard of AI. But the reality is that AI has been around for decades, and a lot of the ideas that we see today have been around and are just being implemented in new ways today. And I think a good example of this is from 1967. And there's a video that's playing on the screen right now. And this is a video of something called Eliza. And this was created by a guy called Isaac, I think, no, Joseph Weizenbaum. And he created Eliza because he wanted to create a chatbot that would pass the Turing test. And the Turing test is just a test that was there years ago that it was created by Alan Turing. And the test is that you're supposed to try and create some sort of a computer program that can convince a human that it's a human. And so he created Eliza to be able to be act like a therapist and try to convince people that that it was a human, so a human therapist. So this was in 1967, and a lot of people say that Eliza was the first ever chatbot. It used rules and different programming rules and pattern matching to be able to act like a therapist. And something that's really fun and that I'm going to show you now is that for us as Python programmers, we can actually go ahead and how do I hide this? Um, Let me go ahead and do that. We can actually, as Python programmers today, test out Eliza. So if you go online and you look for the GitHub repository Eliza PY, you will find this repository. And then, they have some instructions. And this is someone who has, taken the Eliza paper and they've put it into a GitHub repository. So what we can do is we can just do this. We'll CD into Eliza into the folder. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, we're already in the folder. And then we can go ahead and run Python Eliza PY here. And here, what we'll get is a welcome message from Eliza. And you know what? I'm just gonna clear. Oh, I'm gonna restart that clear so that you could see from the top. So let's rerun Python Eliza. So here we see our welcome message from Eliza. And we can ask Eliza questions. So we say, "Hi, Eliza, how are you?" Oh, yeah, so obviously Eliza is not interested in discussing how she is feeling, wants to discuss, obviously this is a therapist. So when I've spoken at different conferences, unfortunately, I can't hear what you are saying in the audience, but I would ideally want you to give me some questions in terms of what to ask Eliza. But one question, for example, that I've had in the past in a different conference was like someone asking to ask Eliza, what is the meaning of life? Ah, yeah. And then Eliza is saying, why do you ask? I don't know what a different question we can ask and say, I don't know, how is PyCon Uganda? Uganda. Just that question. So obviously, even though this is a chatbot and this kind of feels almost like ChatGPT, this is obviously not as advanced as what we are seeing with ChatGPT. And what this shows us is that, it's really interesting because even though we have these different concepts, like Eliza, we have the concept of a chatbot, the ideas that are behind things like chatbot have not changed. So the idea of something like Eliza is still consistent, and we are still interested in using chatbots in terms of the interface. But what has changed is the underlying technology that has improved and gotten better over time. So the difference between Eliza that was there in 1967 and ChatGPT that we saw in 2022 is not the fundamental idea behind it, but actually the large language model technology driving the chatbot forward. And so the experience that a user will have is completely different and much more useful because of the improvements that we see in technology. And today I would like to propose to you that there's another concept in AI that is kind of similar to the chatbot concept that has improved over time, not because of the idea itself isn't new, but the technology that's available to us to implement this idea has improved significantly. And that idea is the idea of agency. So in 1994, this is fast, we're again rewinding back into history. We're going back about 30 years ago. In 1994, we had two researchers, Michael Wooldridge and Nicholas Jennings, write a paper that was titled Intelligent Agents, Theory and Practice. And in this paper, these two computer scientists were looking at the field of AI, which had been around, as I said, for decades at that point. And they were looking at the field of AI and they were trying to propose some theories about agents. And if some of you have heard of AI agents, this is something that a lot of people have said is the next frontier of AI. And we're seeing even the latest GPT model that was released, o1, is somewhat of an agentic model. And so we're seeing these ideas that were around 30 years ago actually being implemented in models like o1 in a new way. So one thing that I will say is that the in this paper, Wooldridge and Jennings came up with a definition for AI agents that I think is still relevant to today. So in this paper, they defined agents, AI agents, as being software-based computer systems that have the following properties. So the first property is autonomy. So AI agents are able to act independently of any human interference. They should be able to drive their own behavior forward. Some people would define an AI agent these days as anything that has LLM-based control flow. So any program that the LLM itself is choosing what to do next, people would define that as agentic. The next thing is that they said that agents need to have some sort of social ability. So agents need to be able to communicate with each other and with the world around them. So they need to be able to use some sort of a language. It could be Python, it could be embeddings, it could be whatever, to be able to communicate and interact with each other in some way. And then the third thing is reactivity. Agents need to be able to perceive their environment, and that environment can be a user query. It could be input from a user, a question from a user, like the way you would type in a question from ChatGPT. It could be a vision model that can see the world around it. And then it should be not only able to perceive the environment, but respond to that environment in a timely manner. So it should be able to make a decision to say, okay, I'm seeing my environment or I'm taking this user input and I'm responding to that input in a timely manner. And then the fourth thing is proactiveness. Agents don't only just react to their environment, but they move towards some sort of a goal that they're given. So they're given some sort of a goal, and in a sort of autonomous way, they move towards this goal proactively. So that's something else. Some people would define agents as self-improving. So they should be able to. I know Andrew Ng, talks about agentic workflows where agents should be able to iterate and improve on themselves and sort of have this thinking sort of workflow, which we see in o1 where the large language model actually tells you that it's thinking. So the sort of planning movement towards a goal is that proactiveness that we was also defined in the paper. So we have these ideas of what an AI agent is. We know that large language models are becoming more agentic. How do we then, as Python programmers, actually implement this in the real world? What does this actually look like for us? Well, in my work at the moment, I have been focusing on agentic applications, trying to build out agentic applications, trying to make it easier for Python programmers to build agentic applications as quickly and easily as possible. And in my work, I have been working on something called Contoso Creative Writer, which is a multi-agent application. It uses multiple small agents to achieve a goal. And I'm going to show you today, we're going to look at what Contoso looks like, and a little bit of how it was built as well. And the goal of Contoso Creative Writer, this agentic application that I've built, is to write trendy articles that market products to for products for an online retailer. So there's an online retailer, a fictional one called Contoso Outdoors. And this retailer wants to sell tents and whatever other things people use for the outdoors. And they have a vector store where they store all of the information of the products that they have. And we want to be able to give the marketing team a tool where they can quickly write, whatever trends are popping up online about the outdoors, they can quickly write articles, or the articles are quickly generated for them, and they can put them on the Contoso Outdoors blog post. Something I will mention is that this project that I worked on is completely open source, and the code is at that link that I have, and I'll share that link again at the end of the talk. So what does this practically look like in, when we're building out an application like this using agents? So there are four specific agents that I have added. This is not just me, it's a team that we're working on this. There are four agents that work in Contoso Creative Writer. The first agent is the researcher agent, and this agent searches for information online. It uses GPT 3.5 Turbo to generate queries that are passed to the Bing Search API. And so the research agent will generate these queries, and then we'll do some function calling using tools. We use GPT 3.5 because it's great for function calling, because it's great at generating JSON outputs and like pretty reliable. And I find that like some of the newer models are sometimes not as reliable. But you're able to pass those queries to Bing and then return sort of trending articles or things like that from online. So it researches on the internet. The second agent is a product agent, and this product agent searches for relevant products from items in the Azure AI Vector Store. So we'll take the ask for which products to include in an article, and it will do a semantic similarity search. It'll convert that into an embedding and look for the most semantically similar products and pull those from the vector store to include in the article as well. And then the third thing is that we have a writer agent, and then the writer agent takes the research from the researcher agent, it takes the products from the product agent, and it combines those into a nice article using GPT-4 that it writes out. And so that's great. We will have an article for us. And then the final thing is that the editor agent will then take a look at the article that's been generated, and it will decide it'll review that article, see, is this a good enough article? If not, it will decide whether more research needs to be run, or if any other feedback needs to come in so that the writer can rewrite that article. And if it just likes the article itself, we think it's good enough, it'll reject any other feedback and it will accept the article as is. So those are the four agents that we use in this multi-agent application. So I had wanted to do a live demo, but unfortunately I didn't load my information in time. So we're just going to look at a video of the agent that I have on the screen. So this is what Contoso Creative Writer would look like in like when we deploy the application. And you can see that it says this is a tool. Let's go ahead and see. We can see that this is kind of what the application looks like. On this side here, if you press the example button, it will pre-populate some data, where the first thing is you want to give a prompt for which research should be done. So we're saying, can you find the latest camping trends and what people are doing in winter? Then we ask for tents and sleeping bags as the products we want to integrate into the article. And then we give it an assignment and we say, can you write a fun and engaging article that includes research and products in the article? And it should be 800 to 1,000 words long. So that's the assignment that we give it. And then after that, we want to go ahead and we can click the start work button. Let me just go a little bit out. And if we click the start work button, I'm hoping this was a pre-recorded video that I had. You can have this little button on the side that also shows which research is happening. And so which agent is working? So there, the first agent was the research agent, and then the writer agent is like just streaming whatever it's writing immediately. And you can see it's linking tents, it's linking a sleeping bag, including those products from the Vector store in the article. And it's referencing the sources that it found at the bottom of the article as well from the research as well. And then we also see an editor task at the end there where it sees it's looking at some feedback from the researcher and it will also kind of accept or reject. Here, it's saying that it's rejecting the extra articles because the researcher had offered some extra research, but the editor was like, no, there's enough sources there for the moment. So this is kind of what this is what the application looks like when you run it live. And again, like I mentioned, everything is open source. So because I don't have time, if you have time to, after this, you can feel free to give it a try yourself. So, just to getting closer to the end of my talk, I want to just mention what I think this means for African Pythonistas. What I think this means is that, the main thing that I would like for you to take away from this conversation is, one primary thing is to really think about the things we've seen today. We talked about how a lot of the ideas in AI are not new ideas. A lot of these ideas have been around for 60, 70 years, decades long. And if you go and you research, you go and you look at different papers that have been around for years, and look at the ideas that were presented in those papers and you try to understand, okay, how can I take some of these ideas that have been around so I can kind of get ahead of the curve, and how do I take the large language models and the improvements that we see in technology and sort of implement the improving technology to the older ideas and see what you can create from there. So my encouragement to African Pythonistas is not only do you want to be using the latest large language model or the latest technology, but you want to also be going back into the past and understanding what's coming next, because a lot of the things that are coming next are things that have already existed in the past. And I would love to see more African Pythonistas being at the forefront of introducing, the world to new ideas. These are kind of new ideas when someone hears the word agent or something like that to us right now, when in the context of AI, it seems new, but in reality, it isn't that new because it's been around for 4 years. So I'd encourage us as Africans to really just be digging into research papers, looking at what has been discussed in this space, and then implementing the new technology to be able to kind of implement those in today's world. One thing I'm excited about is small language models and what that's going to look like for us as Africans. How can we take some of the large language model, some of the technology that's there with small language models, and maybe provide resources for people who don't have access to the internet but can have a small language model on their phone or even a large language model on their phone and be able to learn and have access to information that they wouldn't otherwise have. So that is actually it for me for my talk this morning. Like I mentioned before, the code for Contoso Creative Writer is open source. It's available online. You can find me and connect with me on GitHub or on X, and also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. So thank you, everyone. That's the end of my talk. I don't know if we have time for questions, or I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Please, if you have a comment, question, feedback, yeah, you can come forward and yeah.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the link to the GitHub. If you can show the link to the GitHub again, that would be great.
Okay, sure, yes. I just stopped sharing. There we go. Yeah. That is the link to the GitHub. So feel free to go on there um, I'm super interested in like if you even want to contribute to that or you see any way that you want to improve the project or things like that, feel free to do that because I yeah, it's open source, so definitely happy.
There is
Any
another
questions?
question.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Meanwhile, sorry, I came in to play. In case, is there a way, if I'm to create something with this tool, would other AI tools say that this was created by an AI tool? And if I put it out there, won't people not pay me for being a content creator?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. You said if it's we're using an AI tool.
Okay, say I create, let me say a blog post using this
Yeah.
tool. If that content I've created for that blog is put into this AI detecting, will it will those tools detect that this was created by AI and will it be blocked or will it be seen that a human wrote this?
I see. Okay, so I think the thing is that what the research shows is that in the past, AI has sort of AI, a large language model, taking in information generated by a different large language model tends to perform poorly. So it can sometimes break the large language model's train. So like if you are trying to train it on information that was generated by another AI, it yeah, it sometimes will not work well. But at the same time, I think that things have slightly changed, and also um, these days, I do think more, there are like sort of watermarks and things like that, underlying watermarks that, people can tell, or like AI systems can tell when they're trying to train data, when they're trying to train a model or something like that, whether or not something is AI content generated or created by an actual human. And so there are ways to tell that because, it's not always super reliable, I would say, but there are ways that people like OpenAI are working to be able to differentiate between human content and AI generated content. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have two more.
Okay.
Yeah, just a follow-up question. Have you used this tool to generate like real articles or articles where like if a human reads it, where you say that okay, this is really informational article, and it's not just a conjecture of words from the tool.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I think you can use this however you want. But this is the thing is like if you read if I every time I've generated an article with this application, the article is really good. If you've tried to use GPT-4, for example, the latest models of GPT do an excellent job. And I think it's becoming harder and harder, actually. I think unless there's like an underlying watermark where you can really tell, like I think the AI itself could, like OpenAI has some really sophisticated stuff to be able to tell whether it's AI generated or not. But I think for humans, it's going to become more difficult to be able to distinguish whether something is AI generated or generated by a human. And for me, whenever I read articles that are coming out of this project that I was working on, I think the articles are very well written. I think they, reference the correct information. I think they include the correct projects. So it's becoming much, much more difficult to tell the difference. I will say, like, again, the project itself is open source. So if you don't want it to include products, for example, from this vector score, you can remove that. You don't have to have it include the products. You can generate your own articles or whatever you would like, and it will be able to do that for you quite well. I think the only thing is being able to improve the prompting so that you get the style of article that you want. You can also do some fine tuning if you wanted to generate like in the style of your own voice, you can try and do that as well and give it examples, and it will do that for you. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Monica. My question is about the data, showing us what the different agents that you're using. But we have a challenge that most of the data that the agents are trained on is a lot not related to the context of us as Africans. So when we generate the content, let's say I've written an article, how relatable would it be, and how much work are you doing to get the data, or how challenging is it for you to get African data